Hey guys, it's Miss Young, and today we're going to be taking notes over longitude and latitude. You should have your notes page sitting directly in front of you. Please note that everything that you write will be bold and underlined, so make sure that you're paying attention. Let's get started. So let's quickly review. This is going to be something that's going to help you with your latitude and longitude notes and skill. Remember, there are 4 hemispheres of our Earth, 4 halves. These halves are going to help you in being successful at longitude and latitude. So you have your Western Hemisphere, you have your Eastern Hemisphere, you have your Northern Hemisphere, and your Southern Hemisphere. So here's one, here's the second half, and then we have to look the other way. Here's a third half and a fourth half. Okay, so 4 halves, those are your hemispheres. So let's focus on, let's jump right into our latitude and longitude. There are 2 sets of lines used for pinpointing locations everywhere on Earth. You will need to write that statement. Take a look at your notes. It is asking you what is latitude and longitude. This is your answer. It's 2 sets of lines used for pinpointing locations everywhere on Earth. Where these 2 lines cross is your exact location, and these lines are assigned a number or a degree to tell us how far away they are from the equator or the prime meridian. Now this is going to make much more sense at the end of these notes. Okay. Now when we're talking about degrees, when dealing with latitude and longitude, we are not talking about temperature. We are talking about distance. Kind of like the same thing with math when you're dealing with angles. It's kind of the same type of thing. You're measuring a distance, and an angle is you're measuring the distance between the 2 lines. Well, here you're kind of doing the same thing. You're measuring a distance. Okay, so go ahead and wrap up this slide and move on when you're ready. So what is latitude? Here's your definition for latitude. You should be writing that down. They measure how far something is from the equator. It tells you how far you are from the equator. They're also called parallels because they stay the same distance apart all the way around the Earth. They will never, ever touch. Okay, so the equator is very important because it's the starting point for measuring north and measuring south. So the equator is your 0-degree line, and it tells you how far above the equator you go, how far north you are. And then it also tells you how far south that you are from the equator. Now, the furthest distance you can go from the equator is going to be 90 degrees. Now, if you stop and kind of think about the Earth as a whole, you're dealing with literally going 1/4 of a circle. Okay? So if you were to draw a circle around it and you go from the side all the way to the top, that's the same thing as traveling from the equator. Okay, so traveling from here to here, that's 1/4 of a circle. That is 90 degrees. Okay, so going from here to here is 90 degrees. From here to here is 90 degrees, and somewhere in between is 45. This is your 0. Okay, so go ahead and take care of all of these notes and move on when you're ready. Some other useful ways to remember the difference between your latitude and longitude lines are that latitude lines are parallel, kind of like steps on a ladder. So notice you have a ladder right here, kind of showing you that those lines are parallel. They will never touch, just like on your globe that you see. Another way to look at it is like a toy, like a baby toy where the rings stack. There's no ending point to these rings. Okay, and they will never necessarily touch. Yes, they're stacked together, but it's not exactly going to touch ends and change the actual circle itself. Just like the lines of latitude, they are each their own number. They do not intersect at all. All right, now let's take a look at longitude. What is longitude lines? Now notice when you say the word longitude, it kind of makes your mouth go, oh, and longitude. And so you can remember that that's the directions that the lines go on the globe like you see here. So longitude lines measure how far something is from the prime meridian. Now the prime meridian is in yellow. Longitude lines are also known as just meridians. Prime meridian is the primary one. It's the first one. Okay, primero in Spanish means first. Well, and prime means the first. This is the starting point. Okay, these are not parallel because they do cross each other. All of these lines meet at the North Pole, and then they all cross each other again at the South Pole. The prime meridian is very important because it is the starting point for measuring distances east and west. Okay, so measuring east around Earth and west around Earth. It is your 0-degree line. It is your starting point. On the other side, notice these are all circles. On the other side of this, way over here, on the side of the Earth that you can't see right now, it has another name. It's called 180 degrees. It is called the International Dateline, and that is where a new day starts. So wrap up these notes, and I'll get more into detail about that information in just a minute. So some other ways to remember the longitude lines are the long ones that go up and down is it looks like a peeled orange. Notice the picture kind of resembles the little slivers going around the Earth. So you have your 0-degree line. You're traveling half a circle to the east around the eastern hemisphere. Notice how they're all labeled E because that's the eastern hemisphere. Everything to the west of the 0-degree line is your western hemisphere, and notice how they're labeled W because they are in the western hemisphere. That prime meridian line will always be in that same spot. It will always cross through Greenwich, New England, and then through Africa, always. It always is the same, and that's the 0. It's always where it's going to be. That's the divide. Okay, so the prime meridian on the other side of the Earth, like I just showed you, is the 180 degrees. It's half of a circle. It's just like geometry. If you were to go half of a circle, you're going 180 degrees. If you traveled a full circle, it is 360 degrees, which is 180 times 2. Okay, so just remember, prime meridian is 0. The other side of that circle is 180 because it takes a half a circle to go from 0 all the way around the Earth to your 180 line. That's 180 degrees in distance. To go west all the way around the Earth, you travel 180 degrees. That's half of a circle. You get the other side of your prime meridian line. That's why it has 2 different numbers on it. Okay? All right. Finish up. I guess you don't have anything to write on this one. Make sure that you're all caught up and move on when you're ready. All right, so to get a little bit more detailed with your prime meridian, your 0-degree prime meridian and your 180-degree international line, they are a part of the same circle. They're just on opposite sides of the Earth. So what I have done here for you is I've created this map here so that you can kind of see. All right, so imagine you took a globe and you cut it directly in half. Okay, notice where we are. This is us. This is North America. Okay, we are in the western. Let's try that again. This is us. We are in the western hemisphere. Okay, and this is the eastern hemisphere. Okay, because remember, I just showed you how this line will always travel through Greenwich and Africa. That's your 0. Okay, well, when it goes to the other side of the Earth, it continues over here. Just like that. Okay, that's your 180 line. Now here's an interesting thing. This is why it's called the International Dateline. Because what happens is as the sun, or I guess as the Earth passes around the sun and it comes this way, as the sun's light travels across that line, it becomes a new day. So places like right over here, those little islands, this is a little edge of Australia, okay? All of these places, they're going to see the day before we do. The last people to see September, whatever day it is this right here, okay? It's kind of interesting, kind of strange, kind of weird to think about, but that's how those lines work. Move on when you're ready. All right, so how do you actually use these lines? Latitude and longitude lines are just simply coordinates. They are a pair of numbers that work together. And it's these latitude and these longitude numbers that help us find and pinpoint exact locations on a map. Now, latitude is always, always, always first, and longitude is always, always, always second. You cannot get them confused or you will not find the correct places on a map. Okay, so here's our equator. Ta-da! Here's our prime meridian. Okay, equator is your latitude line, prime meridian is your longitude line. So we're going to quickly try to locate 60 degrees north and 90 degrees west. So 60 degrees north, you got to think, are we above or below the equator? You should be above because you are north. Okay, this is your latitude line. So our 60 degree line is going to fall above it. And then we have our 90 degrees west. Okay, well, are we east of the prime meridian or are we west of the prime meridian? Okay, if you know your east and west, you should know where this is going to be. It's going to be on the left side, the west side. So there's our 90 degree line, 90 degrees W. There it is. It is where these two lines cross that make the coordinates. Okay, this is our exact location. Okay, so wrap up those notes, move on when you're ready. All right, so let's take a look at it again. All right, you have your equator, you have your prime meridian, we have our 60 degrees north, and your 90 degrees west. And looky there, your exact location is the letter A. It's where these two lines cross that give us our exact location of the coordinates. And to me, it looks like it's somewhere in Canada. Okay, so let's keep going. We're going to practice this again. Oh, looky here, we have new coordinates. So 30 degrees south, we already have our equator and prime meridian labeled. So think about it. Is the 30 degrees going to be above or below the equator? It's going to be below because it's south. Now our 60 degrees, are we going to be east or west of the prime meridian? Right, we're going to be west. So if we are looking for exact location, we're trying to figure out where these two lines cross. And it's letter C. C is where you will find 30 degrees south, 60 degrees west, somewhere in South America. All right, so let's try again with another set of coordinates. Okay, so we've already got our equator and prime meridian labeled, and we're looking for 30 degrees north. Remember, latitude comes first. So 30 degrees north, are we above it or below the equator? You should be saying above it in northern hemisphere. There we go. There's our 30 degrees north. Remember, we're trying to figure out how far away from the equator we are when we're dealing with latitude. Okay, so we are 30 degrees above the equator. Now let's look at our 150 degrees east. Are we east or west of the prime meridian? We are east. So we just realized that we are 150 degrees away from the prime meridian. Now, the final objective here is, where do these two lines cross? And they cross at E, somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. Okay, so your coordinates directly take you to something in the Pacific Ocean or just the ocean itself. Okay, and it tells you you are 30 degrees north of the equator and 150 degrees east of the prime meridian. All right, so let's try another one. Our coordinates are 50 degrees north, 70 degrees east. we have our prime meridian and equator already labeled for us, so we know our starting point. So we're going to be at 50 degrees north, so we're above the equator. You should be familiar with your hemispheres now. You're in the northern hemisphere. Okay, now wait a minute, this is different. We aren't labeling an exact number. It's not there. So what do? You have to find that number. You're not always going to be able to have the number labeled on the grid, so you have to use your brain and go and estimate a little bit. So halfway between 30 and 60 is about 45. Bump it up just a little bit, just a hair, and you're going to find 50. Okay, so now you know you're 50 degrees north of the equator. Okay, now we have our longitude line 70 degrees east. So which side are you going to be on? East side or the west side? That's right, you're going to be on the eastern hemisphere. There it is. Okay, so now you know that you are 70 degrees east of the prime meridian. Okay, and so it's where these two cross. They give us our exact location, which is F. Okay, so hopefully you have a better understanding of longitude and latitude. And if you have any questions, just continue to practice, continue to ask questions until you get it figured out.